Over the next 48 hours, police, volunteers, and sonar experts carried out an extensive search of the nearby woods and waters around Cowley County State Fishing Lake and the Caw Wildlife Area. Some teams combed through the forest, while others used sonar and divers to scan the lake. They discovered two crucial things: submerged car in the lake, confirming their worst fears, and Jody hidden under leaves and debris in the wildlife area. Jody Sanderholm was born on September 26, 1998, in the close-knit community of Arkansas City, Kansas. She was the cherished daughter of Brian and Cindy Sanderholm, and from a young age, she displayed the kind of bright, determined spirit that made her stand out. After advancing from high school, Jody enrolled at Cowley College, with ambitions of pursuing a career in pharmacy. On the morning of Friday, January 5, 2007, Jody followed her usual schedule. She left home driving her Dodge Stratus to attend a scheduled dance team rehearsal at the college. The session was supposed to conclude around 10:45 a.m., after which she had planned to return home to prepare for a family appointment later that day. But that sense of routine began to unravel by late morning. Jody's mother, Cindy, began calling her daughter's cell phone shortly after the rehearsal was supposed to end. Each call went unanswered, and this was immediately concerning. If she missed a call, she would almost always return it quickly. It simply wasn't like her to go silent. Unable to shake the feeling that something wasn't right, Cindy made the decision to leave work early and head home, hoping to find her daughter there and reassure herself. But when she pulled into the driveway, her concern turned to fear. Jody's car wasn't there, and there were no signs that she had returned home at all. Jody's dance uniform, which she typically washed immediately after practice, was nowhere to be found. The shower was dry, untouched. Her room appeared as though no one had been in it that day. Growing more alarmed by the hour, Cindy reached out to her husband Brian, and they began making calls to friends, classmates, and anyone who might have seen Jody after rehearsal. But despite their efforts, no one could say where she went after she left the dance studio that morning. As the day wore on and approached in the evening, the Sanderholms' concern escalated into full-blown panic. By around 6 p.m., with no new information and no sign of their daughters, Cindy and Brian contacted local law enforcement and officially filed a missing person report. Within hours, flyers were created and distributed across the community, featuring Jody's photograph, physical description, and the details of her last known whereabouts. Officers began retracing her steps, speaking with family members, classmates, and others who might have had contact with her. One of the first leads they followed was Jody's longtime boyfriend, Colby Wilson, whom she had been dating since high school. When questioned, Colby explained that he had been staying at his brother's house in Texas for the past few days. His alibi was verified, and he was soon ruled out as a person of interest. The next day, Saturday, January 6th, brought a pivotal development in the search for answers. Investigators spoke with Jody's closest friend, Lori Leglighter, who had known her since high school. Lori provided investigators with a detail that initially seemed minor, but would soon take on greater significance. She remembered that on the evening of Tuesday, January 2nd, just a few days before Jody went missing, she had left work at the Sirloin Stockade restaurant, located in Arkansas City, sometime around 10 p.m. As she exited the building, she noticed a light blue car that drove past the restaurant multiple times. At the time, it struck her as unusual, but not necessarily alarming. This sighting was one of the first clues that investigators hoped could help them identify potential suspects or witnesses. Investigators began looking into similar reports and checking local surveillance footage for a vehicle matching Lori's description. As Lori was driving home from her shift at the Sirloin Stockade restaurant in Arkansas City, she noticed something in her rear-view mirror that immediately made her uneasy. A car, a light blue sedan, seemed to be following her. But the longer it remained behind her, mimicking her every turn, the more certain she became that something was off. "I thought something strange was going on," Lori later told investigators, recounting the unsettling drive. To test her instincts, she began taking a deliberately winding route home, turning onto smaller streets she didn't usually use. Each time she changed direction, the car behind her did the same. It was no longer just a passing car. It was clearly trailing her. Growing increasingly alarmed, Lori made a split-second decision. Instead of heading straight home, she redirected her car toward a place she hoped would deter whoever was behind her, the local police station. Once there, she pulled into the parking lot and parked beside the building, hoping the person would see she wasn't alone and back off. For a moment, her plan seemed to work. The suspicious car didn't pull in behind her, and after waiting for a short while and seeing no sign of it nearby, Lori cautiously left and resumed her drive home. As she continued on her way, she saw it again. That same blue car was now trailing her a second time. Alarmed by the persistence of the driver, Lori once again turned back and returned to the area near the police station. This time, however, she didn't go inside. She later explained that she dismissed the incident as a dumb prank, or perhaps just someone being foolish or trying to scare her. On Friday morning, January 5th, Lori and Jody both attended a scheduled dance rehearsal for the Cowley Tigerette line at Cowley College. They arrived around the same time, as they often did, and parked their cars near one another in the campus lot. Parked nearby was the same light blue car she had seen earlier that week, and this time, she recognized the driver. His name was Justin Thurber, a 23-year-old local who had been seen around town, often in the company of his brother or other young men in the area. Lori had seen his face before. He wasn't a stranger, exactly, but she had never interacted with him. Still, his presence near the college that morning felt jarring, especially in light of her recent experience. After the rehearsal ended, Lori and Jody both left around the same time. As investigators began collecting statements from members of the dance team and others on campus, more information began to emerge. Several of the other Tigerette dancers came forward to say they too had noticed a man, later confirmed to be Justin Thurber, lingering near the college in the days leading up to Jody's disappearance. The consistency with which he appeared began to feel suspicious. While the community at large was still absorbing the shock of Jody's sudden disappearance, the police were moving swiftly. In the first 24 hours, officers combed the area, driving throughout Arkansas City in hopes of locating Jody's car. Despite their extensive search, the vehicle could not be found. It was as if both Jody and her car had vanished into thin air. However, a critical piece of evidence surfaced through her cell phone data. Investigators tracked the last signal from Jody's phone to a cell tower near the Kaw Wildlife Area, a remote and sprawling nature preserve just outside of town. This led officers to believe that if Jody had been taken, or had gone somewhere unexpectedly, she may have been taken in that direction. At this stage of the investigation, one name kept coming up: Justin Thurber. He had not only been seen by Lori on the day of the rehearsal, but now several other young women recalled seeing him at or near campus more than once in recent days. It was enough to raise serious red flags. Police officially classified him as a person of interest. What made his presence even more concerning was that this wasn't the first time authorities had crossed paths with him. Though still in his early 20s, Justin Thurber was already known to law enforcement. His past encounters with police, while not publicly detailed at this point in the investigation, added to the weight of suspicion. On December 31st, 2006, just 6 days before Jody Sanderholm would vanish without a trace, Justin Thurber found himself back in the custody of law enforcement. He had once again been arrested, this time for theft, marking yet another entry on a growing list of run-ins with the law. After posting a $3,000 bond the very same day, Thurber was released from custody and rang in the new year as if nothing had happened, celebrating the evening freely despite his most recent brush with the law. The very next day, on January 1st, the beginning of a new year that would soon be darkened by tragedy, Justin was already involved in yet another troubling episode. According to police records and witness statements, he was seen pretending to be a law enforcement officer, attempting to impersonate police in public settings. His actions caused confusion and disrupted the peace, drawing attention from actual authorities. When confronted by real officers, Thurber suddenly began complaining of chest pain, claiming a medical emergency. Instead of being taken to the station for questioning, he was transported to a nearby hospital for evaluation. What happened after his medical checkup, however, remains murky. For reasons that were never fully clarified, Thurber was not taken into custody after his release from the hospital. He simply walked free again, despite having impersonated a police officer, a serious offense under most circumstances. The lack of immediate consequences puzzled even some officers involved in the case. On January 6th, as the investigation into Jody Sanderholm's disappearance was gaining momentum. A sharp-eyed officer noticed a familiar car parked in front of a house, Justin Thurber's light blue Cadillac. The vehicle was parked outside his parents' residence, and the officer decided to stop and speak with Justin directly, hoping to get a clearer picture of his movements in recent days. When asked where he had been the day before, Justin launched into a story that quickly raised more questions than it answered. He claimed that he had driven to Winfield, a town roughly 13 miles northeast of Arkansas City, earlier that morning. There, he said, he had met up with a friend and two of that friend's acquaintances, though he emphasized he didn't know the other two individuals very well. He then claimed to have decided to walk from that area all the way toward Arkansas City, a distance of about 30 miles from the Cedar Vale region. After walking for nearly 6 hours, according to his account, he became exhausted and called his father to come pick him up. His father later confirmed this version of events, telling officers that when he found Justin, his son appeared wet and dirty, as if he had been outdoors for a long period. He was picked up near the vicinity of the Cali State Fishing Lake, a remote area not far from the Kaw Wildlife Area, the very same location where Jody's phone had last pinged. Justin further explained that he had left his car behind in Winfield and that friends had later returned it to him. The timeline, the distance, and the vague details about the people he had been with all seemed suspicious, but at that point, officers lacked concrete evidence to detain him. Later that same day, law enforcement conducted an interview with Alexis Schwartzel, a young woman who had recently ended a long-term relationship with Justin Thurber. The two had dated for approximately 3 years, and her insight into his behavior would soon prove important. During the interview, Alexis shared that Justin had frequently taken her on drives to the Kaw Wildlife Area, southeast of Arkansas City. When Alexis was informed that police were looking into the disappearance of Jody Sanderholm, her reaction was one of genuine shock. She then recalled something that seemed chilling in hindsight. During their relationship, Justin had once casually mentioned that he had started noticing Jody when he was just 13 years old. It was a comment she hadn't thought much of at the time, but now it carried a different, more unsettling meaning. Detectives also asked Alexis about the reasons behind her decision to end the relationship. She didn't hesitate to explain that she had grown increasingly uncomfortable with Justin's behavior. According to her, he had become emotionally aggressive and displayed disturbing tendencies that had only worsened as time went on. These weren't just personality quirks, she said. They were signs of someone growing more unpredictable. While police still didn't have hard proof tying Justin Thurber directly to Jody's disappearance, there was enough circumstantial evidence and troubling behavior to justify taking action. That evening, on January 6th, detective made the decision to place Justin under arrest. Not for Jody's case directly, but on a combination of charges that included bail revocation and criminal trespass. These charges were connected to the fact that Justin had been seen on the Cowley College campus, a location he was believed to be barred from entering. When confronted, Justin made it clear that he didn't intend to answer questions at that moment. Meanwhile, officers executed a search warrant at his parents' home, looking for any physical evidence that might connect him to Jody or clarify his recent activities. During the search, they collected a pair of shoes Justin had worn the day before. They were found drying on a towel and were still damp. According to Justin's father, he had helped his son clean the mud off them. Officers also seized the clothing Justin had been wearing when his father picked him up. While these clothes had already been washed, they were still collected as part of the investigation. Investigators were building a profile, assembling timelines, and closing in on the truth. It was now a race against time, and the clock was ticking. The morning of January 7th marked a crucial turning point in the search for Jody Sanderholm. As the sun rose over the Kansas horizon, search teams resumed their efforts in the vast and densely wooded terrain of the Kaw Wildlife Area. Hours into the search, investigators stumbled upon a significant piece of physical evidence, a distinct set of shoe prints. Upon closer analysis, the tread pattern of these prints matched those of Justin Thurber's sneakers. Even more troubling, alongside those tracks were additional, smaller shoe prints believed to belong to a young woman. As members of the search team wrapped up another exhaustive day combing the Kaw Wildlife Area for any sign of missing Jody Sanderholm on their way back to base, they chose to detour past Cowley County State Fishing Lake, a nearby location that had not yet been thoroughly examined. This decision wasn't random. It was sparked by a detail that had stuck with investigators since earlier interviews. Justin Thurber's father had reported that when he picked up his son from the side of the road, Justin was soaking wet, caked in mud, and visibly disheveled. Following that clue, the team arrived at the lake and began scanning the area near the shoreline. What they discovered was nothing short of chilling. Scattered across the edge of the water and concealed within dense brush were several personal items. Some partially submerged in the shallows, others tossed aside as if discarded in haste. Among the recovered belongings were a pair of cut-off sweatshorts, a wallet containing Jodi Sanderholm's driver's license and her social security card, and a black leotard, an item consistent with the official attire worn by members of the Tigerette dance team to which Jodi belonged. Perhaps the most unnerving find, however, was a single sandal lying alone near the lake's edge. Upon closer inspection, the tread pattern on the sole was an exact match to one found earlier at the Cow Wildlife Area, directly tying these two separate locations together. What followed over the next 48 hours was a coordinated and intense operation. Search teams, composed of law enforcement officers, trained volunteers, and sonar specialists, expanded their efforts to cover the surrounding woodlands and waters of both the Cowley County State Fishing Lake and the Cow Wildlife Area. While some teams continued combing the underbrush, others focused on the lake itself, using sonar and specialized diving equipment to inspect beneath the surface. That's when they made two significant discoveries. First, Jodi's vehicle was located submerged in the lake, confirming the worst fears of investigators. Second, Jodi herself was located in the wildlife preserve, concealed beneath a layer of fallen leaves, twigs, and forest debris. Though the car's interior had been fully flooded, and many believed it unlikely that usable trace evidence would remain, forensic technicians refused to give up. They spent countless hours combing the upholstery, carpets, and interior panels, searching for even the smallest fragment of physical evidence. Their diligence paid off. Embedded in the fabric of the driver's seat, investigators found a single short strand of hair, small in size but potentially massive in legal weight. The hair was sent to a forensic lab for mitochondrial DNA testing, the director of a leading DNA testing facility. The results came back conclusive. The hair was almost certainly Justin Thurber's, making it the first direct forensic evidence placing him inside Jodi's vehicle. By reviewing cell tower records, investigators traced the locations of both Jodi's mobile phone and Justin Thurber's phone on the day of her disappearance. The data showed that the two phones moved through the same areas at the same times over the course of the day, strongly suggesting that Thurber had either been closely following her or traveling alongside her without her knowledge. The overlap wasn't minor. It was consistent and frequent, providing a technological timeline that confirmed suspicions of stalking. This digital trail was further corroborated by witness testimony. Lori Leglighter, Jodi's best friend and a fellow Tigerette, came forward and told authorities that she had seen Justin Thurber in the Cowley College parking lot on the morning Jodi disappeared. She recalled his presence with clarity, his distinctive light blue Cadillac parked unusually close to the rehearsal area. Investigators immediately obtained surveillance footage from campus security cameras, and Lori's memory was validated. The footage clearly showed Thurber's Cadillac parked near the dance studio. Even more telling, the video captured Jodi leaving rehearsal, walking to her car, and driving away, followed almost immediately by Thurber's vehicle, which exited the lot just moments after hers. That detail was crucial. It confirmed that he had tailed her from the college, raising strong suspicions that he intended to intercept her at some point afterward. Investigators believed was when he acted. Near the Sanderholm family mailbox, officers found a shoe print in the dirt. Analysis confirmed that the tread matched the soles of the same shoes Thurber had been seen wearing days earlier. The same pair police had recovered drying on a towel at his home, cleaned but still holding traces of mud. From physical items and forensic samples to digital records and eyewitness accounts, the investigation was building a comprehensive timeline, one that increasingly pointed to Justin Thurber's involvement in Jodi's disappearance. The footprints discovered earlier in the Cow Wildlife Area were now placed in even sharper context. Forensic analysis confirmed two distinct sets. One matched Justin's shoes, while the other matched Jodi's sandals, like the one recovered near the lake. More chillingly, the two sets of prints walked side by side for a distance, suggesting she had been forced to walk alongside him into the woods. Then suddenly, Jody's prints disappeared. From that point forward, only Thurber's tracks continued, deepening into the earth, likely due to the added weight of carrying someone. Inconsistencies in Justin Thurber's alibi soon unraveled. All three individuals he had claimed to be with on the day of Jody's disappearance were interviewed by police, and each one denied having seen or spoken with him that day. With mounting physical evidence, witness accounts, digital tracking data, and a failed alibi, the case against Justin Thurber had turned from circumstantial to compelling. 3 officers accompanied him on a trip to Cedar Vale, the remote area where he had previously claimed his car had gotten stuck. The idea was simple. If Thurber was telling the truth, he should be able to point out the exact location where he had allegedly been stranded. However, once they arrived in the area, it quickly became apparent that Justin was either confused or deliberately evasive. He wandered through the terrain but failed to identify the spot with any clarity. Back at the police station, perhaps attempting to appear cooperative or confident in his innocence, Justin Thurber made an unexpected move. He volunteered to take a polygraph test. He also made a specific request. He wanted his relative, Chad Monroe, present during the examination. Chad was not just a family member. He was employed by the Cowley County Sheriff's Office. The request raised eyebrows among investigators, but it was granted. Despite Thurber's apparent willingness to participate in the investigation, the volume of physical and testimonial evidence that had been collected was already enough to formally indict him. As the case moved toward trial, Justin Thurber's defense team mounted a strategy aimed at avoiding the harshest penalties. One of their central claims was that Justin was mentally unfit to stand trial. However, this argument faced serious obstacles. Evidence presented in court demonstrated that Thurber had graduated from high school and had even completed some college coursework. As a result, the presiding judge rejected the defense's motion, ruling that Thurber was fully competent to stand trial. Once the trial began, it became evident that the prosecution had built a comprehensive case. In addition to the forensic and digital evidence, the state called a number of witnesses whose testimonies painted a chilling pattern of behavior. Alongside Alexis Schwartzel, Thurber's former girlfriend who had already shared troubling accounts of his violent tendencies, 6 additional women came forward to testify. After several weeks of testimony, the case was handed over to the jury. On February 17, 2009, after careful deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous verdict. Justin Thurber was found guilty on all counts related to Jody Sanderholm's disappearance and death. Given the nature of the crime and the overwhelming evidence, the jury also unanimously recommended that he receive the death penalty. With the weight of the sentence looming, Thurber made a last-ditch attempt to avoid capital punishment. He attempted to enter into plea negotiations, hoping that by accepting guilt, he might receive a lesser sentence, perhaps life in prison without the possibility of parole. However, this effort was quickly blocked by the Sanderholm family. For them, justice required the full application of the law. They strongly opposed any agreement that would allow Thurber to escape the sentence the jury had already recommended. In March 2009, Justin Thurber was formally sentenced to death by injection. In the aftermath of this devastating case, the state of Kansas responded with legislative action. In 2008, before the trial had even concluded, the state enacted Jody's Law, a bill named in honor of Jody Sanderholm. This law aimed to strengthen protections for potential victims by expanding the legal definition of stalking. It gave law enforcement greater authority to intervene in cases where an individual was being harassed or followed, even when the behavior did not meet previous thresholds for criminal action. Despite the conviction and the sentence, Justin Thurber did not stop fighting the outcome. Over the years, he continued to file appeals, seeking to overturn the verdict or reduce the punishment. One of his most notable appeals occurred in 2018, nearly a decade after the original trial. That year, the Kansas Supreme Court temporarily postponed Thurber's death sentence, citing a ruling from the Supreme Court of the United States. This ruling prohibited the execution of individuals with intellectual disabilities, even in cases where the cognitive limitations were classified as mild. Thurber's legal team argued that he fell within that protected category. However, the Sanderholm family and the original prosecution team strongly disagreed. They pointed out that a full competency hearing had already been conducted as part of the initial trial process, and Thurber had been declared mentally competent by qualified professionals. As of this latest development, Justin Thurber, now 39 years old, remains incarcerated. Thurber's status within the correctional system has not changed. He is still listed as being on death row, pending the outcome of ongoing appeals and legal motions.